Well, shares of Teva Pharmaceuticals soaring on earnings. The stock is up more than 10% today. The company reporting better than expected results with revenue up 2% from a year ago. The results driven by sales of its Huntington's disease drug Austedo. Joining us now is Teva Pharmaceuticals CEO Richard Francis. It is great to talk to you today. Certainly investors liking what they heard today. Austedo is one of a trio of drugs that the company has essentially bet its future on. And you yourself have said, look, this is a setup year. The real gains will come next year. So when you think about the potential, how big of a revenue driver do you expect these branded drugs to be?
So thank you for the question and thank you for having me on. So I think the potential is significant. When we launched our strategy in May, we actually said, we called it the pivot to growth strategy. And we actually think Austedo, one of the drugs you mentioned, can do $2.5 billion in revenue by 2027. The two others that we talked about were Ajovy for migraine and Uzedy for schizophrenia. And those, coupled with another launch we have coming along for an olanzapine, another product for schizophrenia, we really think that that can create a significant innovative business for Teva that has significant growth. So I think that's what we're talking about. But as you've highlighted, we've got to show we can do that. And I think Q2 showed that we have the potential to drive our innovative business. We just got to make sure we keep doing that.
Richard, when it comes to the product pipeline, obviously very exciting goals that you have in mind. In terms of your ability to reach those, I know you've struggled with labor shortages in the past, the shortage with Adderall here in the U.S. being a huge issue, with Teva being the largest supplier of Adderall. What does that landscape look like today? Have you seen improvement, significant improvement, when it comes to the labor side of your business?
We have actually. In fact, when you look at what we're trying to do here at Teva, with our pivot to growth strategy, we're having to actually recruit people in all different areas of our business. As we expand our innovative business, we've hired people from that innovative sector. So R&D, we've been expanding significantly, as well as in our clinical development, because we have a pipeline, as you highlighted there. We have 3 assets in our pipeline that are very exciting: olanzapine for schizophrenia, a product for asthma, and then a TL1A, which is been the talk the last few months because of some acquisitions, one made by Merck of Prometheus, and then another company that's been talked about, Reavant. So I think we've really enhanced our staffing in those areas. And then on the commercial side, we've expanded our sales force for Austedo and Uzedy. So we actually are hiring, and we're finding it, competitive still. But I think Teva has a good value proposition because of our story and our trajectory and where we're trying to take the company.
As we highlighted at the top here, this is a company that is really in recovery here. You have been hit with one legal case after another. Today, you talked about setting aside $200 million for a possible settlement with the DOJ around price fixing. There's also those cases around the opioid settlement. What does that path look like coming out of that litigation? And where does the recovery go from here?
Well, look, I think you summed up really well there. As we are coming out of that litigation. So I think that litigation is behind us. And what we're now doing is focusing on growth. And what we need to do is make sure the resources of the company are applied to driving our growth. Our growth drivers in the innovative side. I said, Austedo is up 51% today. The company in local currency is up 4%. So I think we've set ourselves on a good track. We've got to keep doing this. And I think, as you said, this year is the year that we've got to start to show that we can return to growth. I don't think, we're going to, suddenly pivot, but we've got to start to show incremental improvements in our business and in our portfolio mix. Our generics, we've communicated that we want to make that a powerhouse, make that a really focused generic business where we bring complex generics to the market and where we have a great supply chain. We're working hard to do that. And in the meantime, we're supplementing that and growing our innovative business. So I believe, Teva has a strong future. And that's what we're focused on. And that's why I think that it's important that we keep delivering these numbers. And we're confident that Austedo will hit $1.2 billion this year.
When you talk about shaping your future there, Richard, there have been reports that you could potentially be looking at selling your API business, your active pharmaceutical ingredient unit. Is this something that is being considered given what you view the future of Teva here down the line?
So what we've communicated about TAPI, our API business, you highlight there, is that we're actually going to move it as to a standalone business. Why are we doing this? Well, it's the second largest manufacturer of API in the world. And we've sort of had it under different parts of our business. And the API market's growing at 7%. And what we've done in the past is strategically use TAPI happy to feed our generics business. What we want to do now is give it the freedom to operate on a global market. We think that's going to allow it to grow what is already $1 billion business significantly, and that's going to help our growth story as Teva. So that's what we're mainly focused on. I think what some of the rumors are generated because people see TAPI as a good business with a lot of growth potential. But we do as well, and that's why we're focusing on making sure it's standalone and can focus on driving growth itself.
Richard, you talked about sort of pivoting to more of a higher risk pipeline, but we know the industry has felt the pressure from IRA, Medicare drug pricing. What are you thinking about in terms of strategy, and how do you strategize so you don't necessarily become a target on that?
Well, look, I think it's always been an evolving landscape and a moving landscape when it comes to regulation. And so I think what we're doing at Teva is we're focusing on science, bringing good products to the market where there's high unmet medical need, where patients need these products. I mean, you mentioned Austedo there. There was no treatment for tardive dyskinesia and Huntington's disease before these products came to the market. TL1A is going to be directed at ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, where there's no real satisfactory treatment. So I think for us, we want to actually bring these medicines to the market to help these patients. The IRA and some of the other things that are happening, we will have to navigate those because they will become part of our ecosystem. But that's not going to stop us bringing valuable medicines to the market.
How do you navigate that, though? When you think about where the targets could be, how do you navigate around that?
Well, I think firstly, it's coming now. So for the products we've got, we can't navigate. We just have to accept in our financial forecasting that the IRA potentially could come at some point, and then we've got to financially plan for that, what that does, and how we deal with that. And we'll deal with that with bringing more innovative products to the market. We'll deal with that with growing our generics business to a powerhouse. That's how we deal with that. So I think I think it's frustrating because I do think it puts a dent on the enthusiasm to drive innovation. And it creates more challenges, which is a very costly part of our business where we have many failures in the pharma biotech industry. We invest a huge amount in innovation and we don't turn over many aces. I think people forget that. But it's become reality, so we do have to navigate it. And for our current molecules, we'll just have to accept that's going to happen at some point if they reach a certain revenue. And for our pipeline, I think we are a company that has great antibody engineering capabilities, and so that's where the majority of our pipeline will come from. And I think at least for the short term, that seems to be excluded.
Richard Francis, CEO of Teva Pharmaceuticals. Good to have you on today. Appreciate the time.